All right, so let's just go around and identify ourselves for the record. Howard, you want to start?
Howard D'Amico.
Ryan Hogan.
Dick Vandenberg?
Carol Godlinski.
Heather Moore online.
Heather Moore and online, okay, so. Adam, you're up. So what we're looking to do, everybody, I know you're working on numbers with Matt specifically in the spreadsheet, but kind of give an overview of where we're headed the next year and
Okay, so
issues and concerns, okay?
so the only thing I've changed a little bit, just all I've done is adjust a couple of accounts that have been running over for a couple of years, and then I've taken away from other accounts. So it looks like I've added about $2,076 to my budget. That's all I went up. I took some back on, for heating went down a little bit, but electric went up. My electric's been trending upwards. So that's basically what I have for that. I don't want to go through each line item. I know you guys want to cut things short, so try to avoid rambling on for you.
Yeah, I guess what we'd like, Adam, is as you look ahead to the next
Okay.
12 months, are there some big issues or concerns that are really on your mind in terms of accomplishing what you need to and so on?
So not budget-wise at the moment.
What's keeping you up at night?
Yeah.
Anything?
Not at the moment. So things that, we got an exciting year here. Town administrator has a lot of work to do with myself and the house doctor, whoever they hire. We've got the main roof replacement's going to come forward this year. The post office adult social center parking lot, we're going to pave that this year. And the generator, I know there's already been talk, we've been in the works with that. And then we're going to continue with our Green Communities program to upgrade some lighting in different places, so, you know, cost-effective measures, stuff like that. So it's going to be a good year. I mean, we've got a lot to do, you know, and which I'm happy to see. A lot of this has been a long time coming. We've got things that need to be addressed. And like I said, I think it'll be very well, the time well spent, I should say. So that's what I have coming up. And then, like I said, I did give you guys my capital list, my repair lists that I always give you, projects that we completed over the last year, and then I always give you guys the how much heating oil we use, because that's always a good number. Last year we were paying $249.9. This year we're paying $449.9. It's just, you know, the way the market trends at the moment. So, but nothing that's keeping me up at night right now. I mean, like I said, a lot of exciting things. I can't wait to get started.
I know, Carol, one of your big issues has been maintenance,
Right.
just in general. Do you want to speak to that a minute?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You kind of oversee most of the buildings,
Yep,
right? Now,
yep.
do you oversee the schools at all?
I do not.
You do
No.
not? Okay. So maybe get somebody up there on the roofs to see if anything's leaking?
Yeah, so I do,
What's going on?
I do it, here I do inspections. The insurance company has us go up there 3 times a year, but I do more. I do sheets just like this, and I'm sure I sent them on SharePoint. This is just some examples of what I've done. This is like the first floor air conditioners cleaned. Every year that's cleaned and serviced. Every time I try to keep track of what we replace for parts. And the same thing with our boiler and equipment, anytime we've done service maintenance. So I know, see if I see a trend, something going on that, you know, maybe there's something that we need to address. But roofs, we've been on it. The roofs that are here now, after this one, the main roof, which was 1995.
This is the one you were-
Yeah, that's the main roof. Yeah, it's 95, and the elevator roof is 96. Everything else will be like 2011 and forward, so which is good. So they're finally, yeah, and the old roof, unfortunately, back when they did that, they didn't have a lot of money, so they left the old tire and gravel roof and went over it. So I need to strip both roofs off and then start fresh, right down to the wood. So, but yeah, I have maintenance records for everything that we do, for any air conditioning units to boilers to, you know, roofs, any inspections, anytime I patch it, how much it costs me. And like I said, anytime you want to stop by, I have everything.
Good.
So, and that's how John and I do the same spreadsheet pretty much for the same thing. This is just the maintenance truck. I know it's a new truck, but this is everything we've done so far on that truck. And so.
Questions, anybody for Adam? Brian?
On the oil, do we have a rate for this year yet, for fiscal '24?
No, we haven't gone out to bid. They usually go in the summer. After we get this one done, we'll start right with the next one.
And what are we approximating in the budget then? Do we have to put a number in?
So this one, so we have, let's see, I have $42,875. Now, that'll include this building, the senior, adult social center, I gotta get that straight, keep saying it, the old fire station, which we keep very low, and those 3 buildings, that's all I supply.
So you're using the 449 rate as an approximation at this point?
So the 42,875 is the approximation. That's the new rate. It went down, we went down a little bit on it.
Okay.
So this year, like I said, even though the prices went up right now, I'll have to fill it one more time. I think this year's been a little exceptional. The weather's been a little nicer, so I haven't used as much, which is a good thing, especially at 449. So that's what this year is. So next year we'll go out to bid. Usually I end up with this building alone, usually somewhere around 10,000 gallons a year for the season.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question on the old fire station.
Sure.
How's that observation tower?
No, yeah, I went up there once, about probably 8 years ago, and the whole thing shifted.
Yeah.
So that's
Too
not
bad we
it.
couldn't get a grant to fix
Yeah,
that.
yeah. The whole thing shifted, and there's so much water that runs down, I don't,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
you couldn't go in.
Yeah. I don't see it lasting,
A lot
unfortunately.
of people in town don't even realize what it is.
No, I'm sure they don't. Yep.
Heather, do you have any questions for Adam?
No, the heating oil was the question. Got beaten to it, so. no
Okay.
issues.
Adam, anything else for us?
That's it. Nice and quiet, trying to keep in my time. I
Okay.
wanted to make it for
Got
you
a
guys.
couple extra minutes, you're good. Go.
All right. I usually can ramble on for a good hour, so
Oh,
don't
what's
worry.
next year?
All right.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Adam.
I'll join you.
All right, so John,
Yes.
kind of similar things as you look
Okay.
ahead to the year, what's
Yep,
priorities, what's keeping you up at night, et cetera.
all right, so I'll start off with the new highway building that we're in discussions with. The town administrator, we're looking to hire a house doctor / architect. That is in the works, it's at the Building Facilities Committee at this point. We know we do have the ball rolling. We were in that building, was built in the 30s, have equipment stored all over town. So that's where that is. So that's that's my number one thing keeping me up at night, I guess, trying to get our equipment inside and what have you, and get a new building somewhere here in town, close to where we are. Secondly, my roads concern me, the condition of my roads. I mean, we were gracious enough to spend almost $1 million last year on 2.28 miles of roads, which isn't very much when you have 85 miles of roads, you know? So, but hey, we've started, you know, we crack sealed several roads in town as well, you know, trying to get our PCI number up. And we're hoping this year to do some drainage on South Street in that very bad section, as well as reclaim and pave that section. It's a little over a mile of road.
Were you happy with the road work that was done?
Very happy.
Okay.
Yes, it was a local company right out of Uxbridge, and I highly recommend them, and I actually hope they get the work again this year. My third thing is personnel. You know, I'm still down 1.5 employees from 2010, because I lost Adam half the time or more. I understand, you know, the money's tight and what have you, but I just don't want that to be forgotten. You know, we've taken on more work, we've taken on the tree warden job since then, ball fields, you know. So there's 6.5 people, including myself, to do all the highway work, you know, so that's always a concern of mine, trying to get, you know, at least back to 2010 staffing, if not more, as we accept more roads and do more things.
More roads now than you had before. in 2010, right?
Exactly, you know, so I just don't want that to be forgotten, because that does keep me up at night as well. And my last big thing is tree removal. Last year, just in our budget, you folks are gracious to give us $70,000 total. We took down 524 large dead oak trees. We're got a long way to go. You know, when the leaves pop out this year, my phone's going to ring off the hook again with the more dead trees, you know. So National Grid's been good to us. We work well with them. You know, if they need a traffic guy, I'll give them a traffic guy, and then they'll take 2 trees down for me, so it's a nice trade-off, you know? At $2,000 a day, you don't get many trees done, so, you know, we work good with National Grid.
Do you
So-
you anticipate that continuing?
Oh, with Grid?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We have a very good working relationship with National Grid. So we'll continue to work with them and cut our dead hazardous trees in town.
Questions, anybody? Heather, any questions? Okay. So, go ahead.
I want to let Heather go first, so I didn't steal hers. I just got 2 maybe quick ones. So with the lack of salt being used this winter, well, maybe I'm wrong in saying that. It was a light winter, so maybe we still use salt and
All right.
there are ice in the roads and we're not. So
That's what he is.
so that's the first question. Do we use
Yep.
less salt than usual this year?
As of, we're at 15 events. Last year, we had 24 events. We had a lot of rain this year, where at the middle of the night, we're out putting salt down because it got cold and the roads froze, you know? So without today's storm, I'm at $208,000. Okay? We have a $252,000 snow budget. After today's storm, you know, we plowed for 9 hours. We're going back out when we leave here to put another round of salt down. I'm going to say most of the snow money will be gone at that point.
In terms of the salt prices, you sent us this nice list that essentially shows they've almost doubled since 2013, the price of salt.
Yes.
Is kind of what I was getting at. Is there any thought, do you anticipate those prices will go down a little bit or at least hold steady? There's not as much as with
Well,
mild winter around here this
It's,
past season.
I would say it's, the fuel prices has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
So I'm hoping it'll go down some,
Yeah,
you know, because it went up 20%, you know, on the total cost of salt.
right.
You know, same with our subcontractors. We try to stay with whatever the state pays, otherwise we lose our subcontractors. But salt, my guess would be it's going to at least stay the same, if not go down a little bit.
Excellent. That would be good. My second question has to do with Chapter 90. I think I know the answer, but I just want to be sure.
Yep.
When you sent this list, I thought it was interesting to note that our Chapter 90 money from the state has gone down a little bit since 2012. That's 10 years ago. So is that 100% a miles calculation? You have this many miles, you get this much money, or is it like the schools where certain communities are considered low income or high traffic and they get a higher rate?
It mostly based on mileage,
Okay,
and then they mix in the population,
okay.
and that's how they
So
come
we
up
probably
with
get
that,
dinged a little bit there, right? 'Cause-
with the figures.
Yeah, okay. So even if a suburb of Boston had the same number of people, the same number of miles, you would anticipate they would get the same rate that we?
They should.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dick.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Anyone else? Questions?
I'm going to ask you again the maintenance question.
Sure. So we are very good with maintenance. I've got a 2001 truck. When I retire, I'm going to write a novel with all these pages of all the maintenance, if you want to. I believe we
This is-
sent these along.
Yeah. But this is everything that we've ever done to that truck. since
To that
2001.
truck. This is my grader, again, a 1997. You know, I try to do a lot of stuff in-house to save the money because I'm pretty handy mechanically, but there's some stuff that has to go out, you know. But as far as the building goes, we had the garage door guys there last week, tuning up the doors, putting weather stripping on the doors.
You have kind of a schedule, like miles and you grease
So
it,
here's,
change the oil
so
and
this
stuff
is,
like
this
that.
is our, we have this board, it sits in my office, and basically it gives us every truck, every vehicle. This is just a picture I took. So that's
Okay.
the truck.
Yep.
That tells me every 5,000 miles or 200 hours or one time a year.
Yep.
That's the inspection sticker, that's when it was greased last,
Yep.
and that's the mileage for the next oil change. And it's every piece of equipment we have.
And you do
And-
perfect.
Yeah, so that has everything that's on.
That's why your stuff lasts so long.
Yeah, it's time to get rid of the 2001s, I'll be honest.
But then we have, our guys they have repair sheets. If they repair something in-house, this gets written down, comes to me, gets put on a log. The same thing we have truck checks. This goes to the insurance company along with our guys. So anything they find, any defects, gets logged on here. It gives us a chance to repair it. So
Okay, Carol, anything else? Everybody good? Howard, anything? Good. Heather, you good? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Be safe tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Nick? So thank you for sharing your stuff with us, Chief.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I have a couple copies here if someone didn't get one. Did you get one, Ryan?
I got one. I think you used one.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Carol, on the last page, there's a maintenance record just for you.
Oh, great. You heard about me asking
Yeah.
this stuff, didn't you?
So. The last 2 pages. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the last 2 pages. So, very similar, just to get to your question first, we do something very similar to what the highway department does. We keep a record of every time a cruiser or whatever vehicle that we have goes in for maintenance, whether it's grease, oil, filter, it gets logged with the miles. So you'll see in that example from that cruiser, from the time it had 2,000 miles on it, it got its first oil change, and you'll see right up until this year. That's one of the oldest ones that we have that we'll be looking to replace this year in this budget. So I won't go through everything in here. You guys can read it at your leisure. If you have any questions, you can email me or ask me now. But, you know, our department is same staffing for next year. We're looking at, what keeps me up at night is adequate staffing. As we move further, and I put it in this document, I'm going to start having the conversation with Matt. I think we have to start looking at increasing the department in personnel. I'm looking to ask for one probably. I would like to ask for one now. I know that this is not the financial climate to do it because there's other things that are looking to get accomplished this year with the compensation package and everything else that's going on. So, but in the following fiscal year, I would be looking to add one officer, and maybe the fiscal year after that, add another one. Communities similar to our size are at about 17, 18 officers, full-time officers. Right now, we're at 15 with myself and the lieutenant. So Lieutenant and I handle most of the administrative duties. We have a detective sergeant that handles all the major cases, and accreditation is our accreditation manager. So that kind of takes him out of the patrol function, but he can work patrol every now and then. So you're looking at probably having 12, 13 officers that are just part of the patrol function itself. Working patrol, you know, 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So when I say adequate staffing, you know, at times, we don't have the amount of people on shift that I would like to have on shift. Say a 3 to 11 shift, sometimes that shift will run with 2 officers. To have it adequately staffed for the amount of traffic and the amount of people that are around and the calls that come in during that time, it should be a sergeant and 2 patrolmen. We don't have the numbers to do that, so that's one of our concerns moving forward.
So Nick, I have a question. First of all, could you say your name and position a minute?
Lieutenant Travis Gould.
Okay, Travis, thank you. Is there anything statewide, Nick, in terms of police reform, or, I mean, you read a lot about body cams and all that kind of stuff. Are there any statewide waves that are
Yeah.
crashing over our department too?
Well, yeah, because that's part of our problem. You'll see too, even in this year, my overtime is up. Next year, in my next year's budget, even though we're still working on the numbers, we got to make some adjustments, but the numbers are up. And the reason why that's up, because with police reform, it changed the way we've done things for almost 30 years. We used to have 10 full-time officers and 10 part-time officers. The way they changed the training requirements, there's really no more part-time reserve officers who can work on a part-time basis. We used to have part-time officers that would literally work, so if I had one of those shifts short, say 2 full-time officers on, and I wasn't happy with the staffing, I could get a part-time officer to come in, pay $20 an hour, opposed to $40 an hour for overtime shift, and have the adequate staffing. That's just not there anymore because of the changes in the police reform bill. Everybody needs to be trained the same, which means they have to be trained as full-time officers. So if they want to be a full-time officer, they can get a full-time job anywhere. They don't have to do it part-time. So right now, we're down to our last 2 reserve officers. One of them is a full-time officer in Millville, so he has very limited time when he can work. And one of them is Mark Dunleavy, who was a full-time officer here for years, and then he took on bought a business of his own, so he runs his own business, but he does still stay here part-time and works once in a while, but his availability is not what it used to be. So we don't have the part-timers, we don't have the part-timers to fill those shifts, so short shifts, we're going to overtime instead of part-timers, which costs more money.
What else is keeping you up at night?
Let's see, this year, we got the 2 cruisers back in the budget, so that's a big item compared to the last 4
What's a cruiser cost these days?
There's 2 cruisers in this budget, and the total is $115,100, so $115,100. One of them would be a gas model cruiser, and one of them's gonna be a hybrid, which is a couple $1,000s more. This would be the first hybrid that we'd be looking to purchase. And again, some departments have them, they love them. It's like 50/50, you don't know. But you could get that with a old-fashioned gas car too. You know, you never know what you're gonna get, but knock on wood, we've had a lot of luck with the cruises that we've had. So we think the hybrids is the direction that things are going, so we wanted to get one this year and at least try it out and see how it's gonna work. But this is the first year in 4, I think. The last time we bought cars were 2019. We bought 3 in 2018 and 3 in 2019. And we were trying to get on that 2-year cycle, 2, 2, and 2, but if you remember, we had one that was involved in an accident, and the timing was right to get 3 of the 2018s and then 3 of the 2019s. So we're looking at, it's been 5 years since we bought cruisers, so we're looking to replace 2 of those. One of the items that is currently in my expense budget is the first payment if we did a 3-year payment on tasers. We have to replace our tasers. So they're out of warranty at the end of this summer, and I would consider, tasers are much like cell phones. The technology changes so quick. So we did a 5-year program. We had originally got them. We got 15 brand-new tasers. Through that 5-year program, included all the training cartridges, everything that we need, battery changes, technology, the software. Now those are out of date and at end of life, so it's time to replace those. There's a couple of ways to pay for that. Last year we replaced our firearms. So there was $30,000 in replace equipment line item. So that came out. So what I did for right now is I put the first payment in that line item if we paid it over 3 years, if we were to do it that way. However, we're looking at alternative ways to pay for that. So that could change. That is going to be a decision probably up to Matt and Gene how they want to do it. But I'll be looking to do that. So that is in this budget as of right now.
Chief, what's, on your last page here, number 4, you have maintained competitive CBA. What is CBA?
Oh, that's the collective bargaining agreement.
Oh, okay.
And those are some of the future things that, are on our mind. The policing and recruiting and retention has become, because of the police reform law, very competitive. So I don't think you're going to lose an officer to another department for $1,500, $2,000, especially if you got some time. When you start talking about $10,000, $12,000, similar communities, we're just going to have to stay competitive and look at that as we move forward. It's the same thing with dispatch. There are good dispatchers are hard to come by, and it's not an easy profession. You look at the people coming up, like a lot of the people coming up, they grew up with technology and they want to work a job where they're going to get a good salary, weekends, holidays off, not work overnights. So it's tough. There's not a lot of people that want to be dispatchers. So again, we have to look at, I know town administrators looking at making their salaries a little bit more competitive, and actually our dispatchers are in the process of forming a union. So I believe we're going to be looking at meeting with them to negotiate some type of deal with them as well.
In the past, Chief, were the dispatchers kind of a grooming ground to to move on to a part-time officer?
Yep.
With the new law, that doesn't work?
It really doesn't work because the part-time officers, again, they used to be able to go to a 340-hour course to get a certification, and then they could work part-time. They get on-the-job training and, in-service training. That has all changed. Now, if they want to even work part-time, they're going to go to a full-time 800-hour academy. But yeah, that's the way we did things for years. We would start somebody who's coming up right out of college, they want to get their foot in the door, we'd start them out dispatching, they'd learn a lot, then we'd send them to the part-time academy, and then we'd get them some road experience, and then when we had an open position, they would slide right in. So that has gone away. That process has gone away anyway. It's just not feasible to do it anymore.
Travis, anything to share with us? What's your view of going forward issues for the police? Anything you'd like to add or subtract?
No, I mean, I think the chief nailed it all right on the head. Again, I think as long as we stay competitive with the other departments, I mean, you look at, not so much in our state, but other states, people are offering $10,000, $20,000 sign-on bonuses just to come work there. I don't think we have any officers that would do that, but for us to get people to come to Douglas to work here, we have to be able to offer them good wage, to make it worth their while. That's the biggest thing. As far as our equipment building that we have and things like that, I mean, we make it work. Of course, we would love a new police station, but, what we have works for us. We've just outgrown it a little bit. But, the chief has made some good moves, updating things and, keeping it nice for us to come into every day, so.
Yeah, and speaking of that, one thing to keep in mind too is I put here at number 5, I know there's talk of a new police station at some point, public safety building, complex, whichever. When we do get to that point, fair warning, as you guys know, like, I don't pay any major bills here. That comes out of Adam's budget. Like, so in the station that we're in now, I don't pay for electricity, I don't pay for heat. That all comes out of Adam's budget for this building. So when we do get to that point where there's a potential new building, there'll be some additional expenses in my budget that would be significant compared to, I'm getting a pretty good deal downstairs.
Yeah, fair enough, right.
So, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. That's one of the things we think about all the time. We talk about the building in and of itself, which is great, and is going to cost a fair amount of money, but it's also going to have an impact on my expense budget, and I don't want that to be a big surprise to you guys when that happens.
Fair enough.
Questions for either of our policemen?
Do
Anybody?
our policemen have to wear body cams?
Not yet. They're not required. I think at some point with the police reform, there is a committee right now. At some point, it's probably going to be a mandate that they do have to. Yeah, it'll probably be an expense, and I think, the biggest expense, what everybody's saying is, of course, is the technology and the storage of it. And not only that, you're going to need somebody who is 1 or 2 people inside that can handle all, the requests for that. There's going to be court requests for it. There's going to be, it's going to be a full-time position just taking care of that stuff. So at some point, I think there's going to be a mandate from the state. Right now, there's not, but I can see it happening down the road.
Ryan or Howard, any questions for the police?
I don't have anything.
Chief, just get me on a trajectory on the new person next year and then one more after that. Give me an idea, when's the last time we added, let's say, a patrol officer position?
Added a full-time patrolman, I think it was 2009,
Okay.
I'm going to say, added.
Yeah.
Because I actually dug up an old schedule the other day, and looking at it was one of the paper ones we had, but there was, again, 10 full-time officers and 10 part-time officers. So there was 10 people up top that were full-time, and then at that point, that was 2005. So then Chief Foley, at one point when he was here, put together a plan. He wanted to do 2, 2, and 2. Add six officers over 6 years, which in the first year went great. He got 2, and that was last time we added to it. So it's been a while. but I can get you the exact date, Howard. and-
No, I'm okay. I'm just trying to get an idea as it's got to get through a process.
Right.
How it plays out, what
Yeah.
it looks like.
Yeah.
What's a ballpark cost, altogether cost?
Well, on our
for
end,
that person?
probably salary-wise, 58 to start if they have to go to the academy, probation step first year. So salary and benefits, 58 on my side for the budget, but I'm sure there's an impact to town side as well.
Okay, good. Sure, yeah.
Anybody else, questions? Heather, do you have a question for either of our policemen? I think you said no, is that right? I didn't hear you. Okay.
All right, if you guys,
Very thorough, thank you so much.
you're welcome. If you look through this, you have any questions, concern, email me or the lieutenant, we'll get right back to you, and whatever you need.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chief and Assistant Chief, Kelly and Kent.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Hello. Nice to be with you this evening. So where we would like to start? We'd like to start with goals, and we want to talk maintenance first.
Well, I think either would be fine, Chief. So not so much the line items as, the big picture stuff. so.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with goals, and then once I find my vehicle maintenance stuff, I'll go on that. So goals for our department, right now, we're hoping to get, we know it's the picture's not very good this year as far as full-time help, but we were hoping to maybe add some extra per diem help during the days, during the peak hours during the day. We have three groups, two groups of two and one group of three, and then
Say that again? So
two groups of two and one group of
Okay.
three. They all work an average of 56 hours a week. That's the schedule they work. It's not 40, it's not 42, it's 56. So they do a look back. They'll do 9 weeks, and they'll do a day. They'll work one full-time day, off a day, one full-time 24-hour, off a day, and then one, and then off for 4. So that's their schedule for the week. So they get 4 days off a week, but some weeks they work in 72, staggered at between 24s. So it can be a little bit scary to be out there with just two of you, especially when you get some emergencies that are very simple, that simply can overwhelm the system. Chief Manning and I are in the station during the day. Admin, usually Monday through Friday. We both work about a 10-hour day, sometimes more than that. We're around. So we were looking to hopefully maybe think about starting to plug in the two groups that only have two, adding one person for 12 hours during the day shift hours when the call people are out of town and they're out at their jobs. We have times where we get the ambulance out, but now we have, we can't get an engine out. If, say, we have to extricate a patient from a car or something, or have a fire, it gets very dicey, and we got to get the mutual aid out really quickly.
We're also missing lots of inspections, about 3 to 7 inspections per week, because those folks are out on calls and we might be tied up doing some other task. So that's not very good customer service, that people can't get their smoke and CO certificates or something like that if they're trying to sell their home.
Right, so what we'll do when they call is they say, we'll get there, we plan on being here at this time, but if for some reason we're not there, we're on an emergency, and we're going to get back to you later that day to try to get there later on during the day. So, and if they're out and we're in the station and we're made aware that they had an inspection, we'll go out and cover that inspection for them. But again, you constantly have those interruptions, so it's a lot of times you're putting out little figurative fires, you know. The second goal we were hoping to do was increase career staffing to one each group. In other words, 3 members for 24 hours a day in the future. In other words, complete the 3 groups with 3 people, 24 hours a day. So that's a long-range goal. And again, that keeps us up at night because we hear the tones when they go off, and whether we're going on that call or not, we're awakened, and now the wheels start turning, it becomes very difficult. And again, you don't know when you're going to get the next call, because you have to go out after you've already worked a 10 or 12-hour day. We also are talking about, we have IMC, which is our software for the fire side, the fire dispatch and whatnot, and that's where we keep all our statistics for fire. We keep track of a lot of our maintenance in there as well. And then we have an Ambul Pro software that's completely just the ambulance side. And so what we're finding is the IMC side is about 20 years old. It was mostly built for police departments, and then they retrofitted it later on. So it's very clunky and doesn't really work well for the fire department. Ambulance is the same thing. What we really want to do is try to incorporate a software that uploads both of those into one. And so the way we to manage all that, anytime we go to get statistics, we've got to go to the fire side software, then we got to go to the ambulance side software, sort all that out, and it gets very time consuming to try to do that. Also to print fire reports, we got to go into one side, and the same with the ambulance reports, whereas we'll be able to do this all from one software. You got anything to add on that? There's other things that we can do.
Such a software exist?
Yes, it does a lot of other functions for us too, like fleet management. I know we're talking a lot about maintenance, site planning, inspections. We're going to be doing a lot more commercial inspections with the building in town. IMC doesn't do a particularly good job of being able to put in inspectional data, retrieve it, or even print out a report to give to a building owner for a public records request. This other software has personnel management, it also has site planning, which would enable us to put the software into a mobile data terminal, so the firefighters and EMTs out in the field could access the data in real time to help make operational decisions. And
Same with the burning permits. We recently went to a burning permit situation where we uploaded everything this year. We had people come in, we gave us their information. Now, they can go right on their phone and activate their permit. Or if weather changes during the day for us, we can, if, say we started burning in the morning, then winds came in, it got really treacherous, we can shut it down, and it sends them an email to their phone to put their fires out. And if someone's an offender, we can terminate their permit right there. So it just, we're starting to get up with the times, and the Surface Pros that we carry and whatnot help us out in the field. Even the same thing with sizing up a building, or knowing what hazardous materials might be in that building if we have a fire. We have all that stuff and can have all that stuff readily, where all this stuff was added into IMC 20 years ago. Well, things change a lot in 20 years.
this change is supported by IT as well.
Right.
Because it's internet-based, it's not subscription-based, which we're paying quite a bit for individual licenses for each machine, and it limits how many that we can have, which is bad as our staff grows. So he fully supports this change, and it'll be less clunky for him to work out the bugs and the problems that we have with it as these two systems bog down. So we have consulted with IT on it, and the cost is just slightly more than what we're currently using, and I think it would be a good value in terms of saving people's time and energy, as well as getting better statistics to drive operational changes.
And then our final goal really was to try to, hopefully, next year, bring our maintenance budgets back to where they were in 2023. We had to make some significant cuts this year. Repairs and maintenance, one of them was like cut in half. We had actually additional equipment where we buy equipment that's older, or we have to fit maybe a set of turnout gear. We've got a lot of grants on turnout gear, but we've had some turnover, and that's one of our concerns too. Again, we talked about adding staff, but right now we're down 2 staff. We're down 2 paramedics. We've been advertising for 4 months. We've interviewed numerous candidates, have made offers, and then had to rescind those offers. There's a shortage out there of paramedics and people that you can entrust with patient information and things like that, and make sure that they're safe, and that we're not putting our own staff members at risk as well. So, again, the pool is dried up. It's very difficult to find paramedics right now. And if you do find a paramedic, you've attracted them somehow. They want the fire service. You've attracted them from an ambulance service. Maybe they're newer. We just hired one from inside our department, who we had in as a per diem and as a that we put through the fire academy. and we just knew he was gold and we had to keep him, so we snagged him up. So we're finding we're a little bit more successful with like a farm team on the fire department to call people, come in. We know them, we know what their history is, and it's really worked out well for us. But again, the thing that's keeping us up at night is we're down 2 paramedics, which makes what? It makes our people have to work longer hours, even though they're already working longer hours, which makes not for a work-life balance.
For the maintenance chief, is it?
Yep.
To get back to that earlier maintenance level, is it simply a matter of budgeting more money for maintenance, or is it more complicated than that?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it works really the same on both sides. Well, right now with the ambulances, we're in good shape. You'll notice from Capital, I put one in only because they're 30 months out. If we were to order one, they're 2.5 years away. So that, our oldest truck is 5 years old. It's in pretty good shape, but I'm not sure if you own vehicles. I know you do, but at 5 or 6 years, that's when the wheels start, the breakdowns start, and you're starting to pour more money into maintenance, and we want to try to avoid that. We were in that situation where but right now, we're rotating these ambulances. They're only 20,000 miles apart. One's got 60 and one's got 40,000. I checked those today. And we've been very successful with these ambulances. But the point is, our runs were up 10% last year, so we're doing more. We know we have more coming, more business and people coming into the town, so we know we're getting busier. But with the supply chain, they're 2.5 years out. If we ordered one today, we wouldn't see it for 2.5 years. So we talked about that on Capital. One of the other areas we had to up our budget was on mileage. By contract, anybody that comes on with us full-time has to go through the full-time fire academy. That's in Stowe, Mass. So we've got to pay them 64 cents a mile to go, all right? My cruiser was in the budget a couple years ago. It's been pulled twice. So we need another cruiser so that we could have, actually, we need 2 new cruisers, but that third cruiser, my cruiser, if it went as a fly car, we'd save money just when someone went to the academy in classes, just by paying the fuel and not 64 cents a mile for a person each way, So we had to up the budget, I think, significantly on the fire side and the EMS, because we have people that come out of the EMS side of the budget and people that come out of the fire side of the budget to keep it balanced. As you know, we have 2 budgets. The other thing, you want to talk a little bit about maintenance?
Sure. So similar to the other departments, we track all our maintenance in spreadsheets. Each vehicle has its own spreadsheet that the repair, the maintenance item is logged in, the cost, and those get filed in a big binder for the life of each vehicle. So we can compare each vehicle across the span of its life and see how the costs increase over time. So some of our 20-year-old fire trucks, those have approximately anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 of maintenance a year attached to them. It could be more if there's something that catastrophically breaks. Otherwise, similar to your own cars and trucks, all these vehicles receive the regular oil changes, brake jobs, tire rotations, and then we have the other parts and pieces such as the pump maintenance, the aerial ladder maintenance, the ground ladder maintenance, and then the hose testing for those specific parts of the vehicles that have them, and all those items are also logged in the maintenance log for each vehicle. So that's how we track it. It works well for us.
And so as far as the hose testing, we added that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It costs us about $4,000 to have 10,000 feet of hose. That's all our hose. But it's about 10,000 feet of hose tested. That's one of the first things ISO checks. They want to see your records, and if your records aren't up to snuff, then that's going to boost up your ISO rating, and you're going to pay more on your insurance. So, and the other thing is, we're not trained to do it. We have a machine to do it, but we've never received any training. It's just sort of on-the-job training. And what's the tendency? Well, that one doesn't look all that bad. Well, we backed it off 5 pounds, and it leaked a little bit, but it didn't burst, so we'll set it aside and save it. We want to take that liability of having to make that decision. so that we don't have a catastrophic incident with something because we tested it. And quite honestly, we don't have the time to test it right now. We're that busy, so we went out to a contract for that. So it's money that's well invested, considering that it affects your ISO rating.
How's the building holding up, chief?
Building's got issues.
I mean, you've talked about the doors and other things over the years, but...
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we added money into the budget this year for a couple, we had a catastrophic failure of a spring this year. So they got a call, went to open the door, it wouldn't open. And then we have the engine that had the pump. That's like a big paperweight in the middle of the fire station. We had to maneuver the trucks around in order to get it out. And by that time, we needed to get somebody out to, so we called mutual aid. But again, those springs, if they let go, we don't want to see a door come down on somebody. That would not be a good day for the town, and it wouldn't be a good day for any of us.
You've put it in the capital process to have the major
Yeah.
safety concerns with the doors addressed.
Because they don't have the electronic eyes on them. When, if something blocks the door or it crosses that beam, it stops the door and brings it back up. We don't have those, so we wanted to fit those with the station to have that extra added measure of security so that no one got hurt. So yeah, they're 23 years old. They've seen a lot of wear, and we brought the company in to get a quote to do all those repairs, bring them up to snuff, and then bring them in biannually to make sure they're being adequately done. And it was quite. I actually, one visit was $750 to do all the maintenance once a year or twice a year. So I thought that was worth its weight in gold. So we'll be doing that as well.
Okay. Questions, anybody for the fire folk? Brian, anything?
Yeah, just a few questions on the documents received.
Yep.
This town of Douglas ambulance fiscal 2023 spreadsheet with the ground mileage on it.
Yep.
Can you so I'm just trying to understand so the top line, the ground mileage is how many miles the ambulances went that month, correct?
That fiscal year.
That fiscal year, the month of that fiscal year. Then I assume below here are the number of calls, is that correct?
Basically, they're divided into the different bands in terms of how they're billed.
Yeah.
So these are kind of a bunch of raw data spreadsheets from our ambulance billing company, and we didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about some if you're going to have ambulance billing questions, so we weren't totally prepared to talk to you about this tonight unless you wanted to talk about it, because we had the other issues where you wanted to talk about maintenance and goals, et cetera.
So if you just added up that whole line, those are the calls, the number of calls that were billed at an advanced life support level 1. In other words, that's an IV, a monitor, and 1 medication.
Okay.
ALS level 2 would be an IV, a monitor, 2 medications. And then you have a BLS one, would just be like, say, we took a psychiatric patient that basically we had to give psychiatric care to and just make sure they were supervised going to the hospital. That's just an example of a BLS rate. And I believe we sent you the rates as well.
We did. Yes, we have a question. So, just so I understand, so these are the types of calls in the bold?
Correct.
Is that correct?
ALS 1 emergency, ALS,
So you had
BLS 2.
For July 22, you had 39 calls for the ALS 1, 18 for the BLS,
Correct.
2 for the ALS 2.
Correct. So
Okay.
you add all those up, that's the amount of calls you had, the 39, it's what?
So you had 59 calls.
59 calls for that call.
Month, yeah.
And so, I'm sorry, what is so it looks like the bottom number,
The bottom number is probably all those calls added up with the mileage they transported. So if you had a 25-mile transport to UMass, and you were way down on South Street, 25 miles to UMass, that's actually your charge per mile for that. And that's all the miles that we charged for.
okay.
So when you get
Beyond
an
the mileage, you charge 1 mile per call? Is that what you,
No.
There's a base rate, and then you charge per mile.
Yeah,
okay, so there's a base rate per call?
Yep.
per call and then mileage.
The BLS base rate, ALS 1 and ALS 2 are like your foot in the door, and then you get charged per mile.
So you'll notice they're all probably within 250 miles of each other all the way across. Because all the trips added up together, whether you went to Milford, whether you went to UMass, whether you went to St. Vincent's, all those billed mileage is added up for that column. For that month, I should say.
You know, when I was looking at it, it looks like there's a certain amount you charge, but that's not usually what you get.
Correct.
Correct.
So they negotiate it down to,
Well, we have,
80% of our payers are contracted payers, meaning they're Medicare or Medicaid, and they will only reimburse so much, which limits how much we're actually able to collect versus what we bill out.
and what about like, even some of the healthcare organizations too. and
Correct.
and stuff like that. Now, the other thing I noticed that you had the self-paying, but it also kind of looked like those self-paying people sometimes, most of the time, don't pay.
That's correct.
So basically, they're kind of free.
right.
Yeah, so,
Well, and we've got a policy where if you're over 65 years of age and your insurance paid 90% of the bill,
Right.
we're not going after you for the rest, we're just not.
well, the other thing too is, I mean, if someone needs an ambulance, you have to do it, and they don't have the money, you can't get blood out of a stone,
Correct,
you know?
correct.
But I mean,
Our admin assistant works to do payment plans and try to at least collect something, so we send out letters and do that as we're able to.
And then you have your hardships that come across my desk. I say, okay, I'm not making a decision on this, and I forward it to the town administrator, and,
the other thing too is if they don't have any insurance at all, it's probably because they don't have any money to buy it.
that's correct.
So, you just, where you gonna get it? Where you gonna get it? If they don't
Right.
have the money, you can't get it. You know? It's not like
Exactly.
they came to you, they wanted to buy a new car, you don't sell them the car.
And
You
we
can't do that.
included,
Somebody needs to go to the hospital.
right, and we included the rates
Yeah,
so that you would have an idea what we're billing. And we haven't changed the rates since 2019, because it doesn't make any sense. For some of it, if you're not billing, why would you just raise the price? You're just increasing the amount you're not going to get paid. So
right.
it's a dance, let's put it that way.
Ryan, anything else?
I don't think so.
Howard? No. Anything else, Carol?
No,
Heather, anything for the fire folk?
I'm good, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Good
You guys
night.
appreciate
Thanks to
it.
both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice story in the Globe today about the
that-
the rescue on Bad Luck Pond, too.
oh, really, I didn't see that.
Yeah, we were very happy that
Were
happened.
you in that picture, Kelly, or not?
I was one of the folks in the big yellow suit, so we got those.
On the ice, was that you?
That was me, yeah.
You laid on the ice?
Yeah, two very large dogs.
That were friendly, according
They
to the
were very
paper. so.
friendly.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
They were nice boys.
All right, thank you, guys. Mr. Wojcik, can you approach the table, please? Unless you have nothing to report for us, Matt.
Oh, I do, I'm just.
I have questions.
Okay.
I saved them all.
Gene, would you like to address the FinCom for anything? No? Okay.
Smart woman.
All right, Mr. Wojcik has the floor. Where do we stand on all and sundry, Matt?
So we're getting to the end, at least the end of my process. And in a nutshell, we're in a good spot. So to be at this point in wrapping up the budget exercise and have a number that's in the black, pretty substantially in the black, is a good place to be. The one big number that I need to have to finish the budget that I don't have right now is BVT. And I really can't submit a budget until that number is submitted to us. Now, I think the letter from Dr. Fitzpatrick said they were having their public hearing on their budget in early March sometime, and that they would tell us right after that what our assessment would be. Last year was unusual because we had very little change in our BVT budget. It was 0.3% increase. And that's after years of double-digit increases, in one year where we had a 22% increase in the BVT budget. So this year, I have as a placeholder a 2.5%. And in out years in the budget forecast, I have 4.5%. I would not be at all surprised if he came back with a 4.5 or a 5 this year, even if the student body stayed exactly the same. He's got his underlying cost drivers, and everybody's surfacing those issues, so I can't imagine why our number would go down much. Now, it would only go down, and I don't have the exact number, depending on how many seniors will graduate and how many people will matriculate as freshmen. That's a key issue. But I'm cautiously optimistic that I have enough resources, quote-unquote, in the black, so a budget that's currently got more revenue coming in than expenditures going out, that would cover a fair amount of any BBT increase and any other additions or subtractions that I need to make. Major issues, let me just go through some of the milestones that we had to get through in order to get to where we are now. The police contract has within it a bonus for accreditation. So the exact phrase reads that in the first full fiscal year after the police department's accreditation is renewed, the entire table would receive a 2.25% accreditation bonus that would be built into the base. That's on top of the COLA.
Built into the base.
Built into the base. The accreditation committee has already told us that the police department is going to be renewed. They have passed all of the necessary tests, so they are going to be re-accredited or renewed. And the committee is scheduled to meet in June. So you see what we got. So I have budgeted both the COLA that's in the contract of 1.75 and the step increase.
June 30, July 1.
June 30, July 1, of 4%. So the money will be there regardless of when the accreditation committee actually signs the piece of paper and hands it to us, which will probably be in the end of June. So it's only fair. Accreditation is an honor for a police department to achieve. It's a little bit more common now than it was when the Douglas Police Department first got it, but that's good for the service across the Commonwealth that they're getting that. So that's a 4% of a lot is a lot. And so that's one of our bigger payroll chunks, and so 4% of that's a pretty substantial increase that we had to accommodate. Another major issue is the health insurance group underwriter is pretty adamant that we can take a 0 this year and be within a very good, still a very healthy place financially. The underwriter actually came back with a rate decrease as the financially defensible solution for our renewal. But we want to take a 0. We don't want to, it's very hard to roll back and then come back up. So we'll stay at 0. But that's a lot of money for us to be able to say 0 on the rate. But the other piece of this we cannot lose sight of is that it really depends how many people take our benefit. The census drives the cost more than the rates do. So at roughly, we'll just use round numbers because it's easier to talk round numbers. If the town's share of the premium, or the working rate, is $25,000, if we have 5 people switch from their spouse's insurance over to ours and they take a family plan with us, that's a family plan, working rate 25, that's $125,000. That's a lot of money for just 5 people. Mm-hmm. So we have to have an eye on that exposure as we go forward. So what we do every year is we over budget. So we use our census as of the last possible date, and then we add 5 family plans to our budget request. And then we also add, Gene was suggesting 5, I actually think we should add 7 retirees, just to, retirees are not that expensive because it's a 50-50 and it's a much cheaper plan. It's actually a great plan, but it's not less expensive because of Medicare's role in it. So that's about 12 extra, and that rolls into surplus if they don't get used. This year they got used, so we had adequate budget, and month to month, somebody will leave us, somebody will come to us, sometimes we're a little over, sometimes we're a little under, but we're right about what we budgeted, not where we were in the census. So we're about 5. But that's good news. That really is a huge stabilizing factor for the town. Another major moving piece, and I'd like to give Gene a lot of credit on this, it's a good catch. Our local receipts, we've been budgeting an extremely conservative number, like way too conservative, a number for that source of revenue. Part of that, I think, is when we were doing the budget for the pandemic year, we made a number of assumptions about revenue loss, because we figured, well, this won't happen, and this won't happen, and people are all going to get locked in their house, so we're not going to get these different local receipts. So we actually reduced the rate of growth in fiscal '21 from 2% year over year to 1.25%. And then we actually didn't lose that revenue, but we never restored it to the budget assumptions. So there was that, we were missing that chunk, so we weren't chuffing along at 2%. We took a little bit of a hit one year, and then we grew back towards a number that we were already way beyond. So this has been a little bit of news to Gene, but the building commissioner gave me an estimate of building permits. I built that into local receipts, and it increased the local receipts number in the revenue budget. It is still very conservative, but not $300,000 to the black. So we really needed that, because to do comp reform, which is the other major piece of my update for you, we have now met with all the department heads and many of the hourly staff. We still have a few more appointments this week to review the outcome of the salary reform. And I'm happy to say that it is completely built into the budget at this point, and we'll be able to swing it in 1 year.
Oh, 1 year.
1 year. That doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect and hunky-dory, but it does mean that we've gotten the goal of being competitive to a very easy shot in fiscal '25, and we anticipate a different type of budget outlook for '25. So I think we're going to be squaring up with a lot of employees, many of them who have been underpaid for quite a long time compared to their peers in other towns. And that would be most especially highway workers and dispatchers. Dispatchers did form a union. We will spread the cost of their catch-up over the life of their contract. That is actually a luxury that we have, but it will help them, I think, not only catch up, but maybe, be a little bit better than catch up by the end of the third year of their contract. But it allows us to phase it in rather than have to try to do it all at once.
How many dispatchers are there, Matt?
Well, you really have 4 full-time, and then you've got others that work hours. There's no exaggerating this. It is just about impossible to find people at work. And I think if you watch this, I will use this as evidence in any argument I need to make with anybody, including town meeting. This week, the New Bedford Police Chief and Fall River Police Chief did a joint press conference where they lamented their inability to recruit anybody to work. And, in an urban setting, when you start to fall behind on police, you talk about losing sleep at night, you definitely lose sleep at night. When you're down 20, 30 officers on a 150-person group, that is a really big loss, and that is really hard to pick up. We see towns that are much bigger than us that offer larger salaries struggling. They may put out that they're going to hire 8 firefighters at this decent wage, and they've only managed to find 4. And the chief is right. We get a lot of applications that aren't even close to being qualified. Then when we narrow it down to a few people, if you've been in the recruiting business and you know what it's like to recruit in an atmosphere of shortage, what are you getting? You're getting people who are either very unhappy where they are, may have had difficulty holding on to things, may have records of things, even if they're in the distant past. Distant past really doesn't bother me much, I'll be honest with you. What happened 20, 25 years ago you know what?
Stupid, are we young and stupid?
Young and stupid happened to all of us. Some people got caught, some people didn't. But if there are issues recently, within the last 5 years, we can't hire that person. It's just that simple. There's no need to take that risk at all. So we don't find that out. And they don't show up on the query either. We have to have the police department do additional background searches to vet these things out, and it is money and time very well spent. So when I say we're having difficulty filling positions, at this point, we've been hiring at competitive wages, notwithstanding the table. We've just been offering, oh, go ahead, we're going to hire you at step 5 because you have experience. We can't even get people to do that. So it is what it is. It will be the challenge going forward in public life for at least the next 5 to 10 years. What a lot of people don't realize, everybody's saying, where did all the people go? Well, I think I have at least part of the answer. A lot of those people were boomers who were at the end of their work life when the pandemic hit, and they're not coming back. And I can remember as a young staff person in the United States Senator's office, what did we talk about all the time? Jobs, 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 jobs. It was all about jobs. We were going to build a submarine at that yard because you wanted the people to have employment. It was all of those things were driven by the fact that the baby boomer generation was a big bubble demographically, and everybody needed to work. And as those folks are aging out of the workplace, they're leaving this huge hole behind, because we built this economy around that labor force. Now the labor force is that much smaller. There are other reasons. Some people do just fine day trading, right? They don't need to go to work at all. Like, if you have some wealth, and that's one of the characteristics of the boomer generation, is they generated wealth, passed that wealth on to people who, if they manage it properly, may not need to work a whole heck of a lot of hours or do anything they don't want to do.
And we have some boomers in this room, I think.
So, the reasons are complex. The reasons are complex, but they're not going to resolve themselves anytime soon. And we've also have a society where we make it harder and harder and harder to have a credential. So it's, being a paramedic now is a really big deal. It's basically the equivalent of getting an associate's degree with a practical element. And you're dealing with people's lives.
So Matt, I've got the spreadsheet here. Does the number that's in surplus include the comp reform?
Yes.
Well, that's great.
So there are elements that I still have to add.
That's great.
Okay? I think it's doable, though. I think it's achievable. So I'm hoping in a week's time, after we hear from BVT, I'm hoping to say I'm proud of the result, because at this moment, I'm proud of the result.
Is that the biggest unknown at this point?
Yeah, it would be really troublesome if they came in with a double-digit increase, because I don't know where I'd find it. It'd be hard work.
Well, we've been trending well there for a little while, right?
Well, I think so, and I think the feedback from the anecdotal side of things, right, is that the new superintendent is doing a very fine job of drawing attention to the truth, which is the competitiveness of the Douglas school system. And once people are confronted with the facts, that it's a good place to stay and get your 4 years of high school, that they're wanting to stay. So I also think that there is I'm being very cynical. How dare I be so cynical? But I think there's a rolling strategy on the part of BVT that this year it's your turn to get your 20% increase. And a couple of years ago, I forget who it was Hopedale or somebody had a huge, massive increase in students, and Douglas didn't have many. And it just kind of goes around. And that's that may be, listen, I worked in a way in the admissions side of things in the university when I was a student. And as an alumni, doing a lot of admissions interviews, you'll get this cohort of kids in a school. And that senior year, that senior class is amazing. They're going to military academies and Ivies, and it's just a group of kids that just by the force of pure luck ended up all being in the same grade level at the same time. And so everybody goes and plucks those kids. And the other classes just may trend more to the historical average. And that'll change from one school to another. It happens in sports too, at least in public schools. You'll say such and such a school has a great program, and after 5 years they're not so great anymore. It's because those kids moved on. So I'm getting wordy. I think the last thing I would want to emphasize is that that same competitiveness issue does filter through your contractual employees, so your most senior managers in town. And that can't be fixed this year. There can be a partial step made towards it for '25, but I think 2 of the 4 are up this year, and the other 3 will be up the following year, and that is the best time to address it. I bring it up because you have 5 or 6 people that are on the higher end of the absolute dollars. It chews up a lot of money. So what I've done in both police and fire is for both the chief and their next highest ranking person is a 2% cost of living and a step of 2.25. And that will bring those positions up, sufficiently, I think, to satisfy the occupants as best I can.
Matt, how are we standing on our big box projects in town? Are they going per schedule, as the Brits would say?
Schedule. It's going swimmingly, to
Is it?
keep in the
Okay.
theme. So you see a lot of work out there now. What you're seeing is the foundations being built for the bridge that will go over the Mumford, and that will be the main access road into the warehouse complex, right? So that's probably the most challenging structural element of this whole thing, because the building itself is just a box. It's being built in an old sand and gravel pit, so most of the site work was really not that hard at all. There's a tiny little pile of stones that they had to crush. There's really nothing there.
Have they hit any surprises with that river?
Thank God, no. We don't expect any surprises in the river, we are aware that there is a very serious competition going on for a specific client, and there are 3 finalists, and the Douglas location is one of them. If Douglas were to win that competition, if CRG wins that, the promise that they would be offering that potential tenant would be to have the entire building soup to nuts, turnkey ready by November. So the pace of construction will be impressive to get to where we are right now, to a fully functioning logistics and distribution center in, 8 months?
Yeah, especially
9 months?
with the supply chains. That is the problem.
Yep. Well, Clayco is really big, so they've got yards full of supplies that they need and enough clout to get people to push them up in the queue.
I'm trying to do something on one of my buildings. Thing I need is 52 weeks out.
Yeah,
52 weeks.
yeah. Well, our generator for this building, man, I don't know when we ordered it. I think we ordered it 10 months ago. Something
What's
like that.
keeping you awake, Matt, between now and the town meeting in May?
It was comp reform up to today, up until when Jean found money. I mean, she corrected the spreadsheet. It was a little bit challenging. We're talking about trying to do all kinds of gymnastics to try to get enough operating cash to meet the budget. I will put this out there, because I think I don't want it to be a surprise if I have to do it. I don't think at this point, it's highly unlikely that I would have to do it. But we do have sufficient free cash to buy the cruisers. So if we absolutely had to, take them out of the expense budget and put them into the special town meeting on May 1st, before the annual, we could do that and free up about $115,000.
Well, there was an additional reason for that, though, because the company that has the cruiser has them in stock now. And due to the supply chain issues, my concern is, okay, who gets there first?
Yeah, you're right.
So if we put it on the special and he holds them for us for the special, we can buy them then.
Right.
If we roll the dice and we wait until have it on an annual budget, if another community were to approach them, would they sell them? So that's that was the other piece of that. And, you know, Matt had brought that concern to me. I had not thought of it until we were talking about, you know, offer and all these other things. And then I read an email where the chief said that this particular dealership had the two and he was holding them, thinking, will they? You know,
Yeah, I mean,
When will we see a budget proposal from you that makes that distinction?
when I get the BVT number.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
We within a couple of weeks by that March 14th meeting?
Yeah, and if I don't want it to go so late. I'm a little bit concerned about being that late with it, but I'd rather be accurate,
Yeah.
right, than rush it. But if there seems to be any delay brewing, I'll call Dr. Fitzpatrick and ask him, just give me a placeholder, shoot high, and just tell me what it is.
At the moment, are the two cruisers seen as special town meeting versus,
Right now, I have them in the expense budget, and this is where we are
they
with.
still fit?
They still fit.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I'm concerned about the supply.
Right, right. So I had a concern.
I'm sorry, can I just follow up on the cruisers before you go on to the next
Sure.
topic? Just as we go forward and we're a little more stable financially, I really think it would be great if, once we get through this kind of round of over the next 2 or 3 years of cruisers, if we could somehow get one cruiser per year. It's pretty much an average of one cruiser per year, isn't it? We're just buying them 2, 2, and 2, taking 3 years off, 2, 2, and 2. It just seems to me to be more stable budget-wise if you could just put one in every year. Now, maybe the police chief has some reason why he doesn't want to do one per year, et cetera, but that way we wouldn't have to go through these gymnastics on, what works out fine in good budget years, but in bad budget years. So,
Well, it becomes an element of volatility, right? When you go from those 2 years when you don't have them, and then you have 4 years where you're going to put them in. 'Cause then there's that jump, that $115,000 jump. And we tried to navigate this by doing the pistol replacement last year and having that equipment line get bigger and bigger every year so that jump to 115 wouldn't be 115, it would be more like 50 or 60, and you kind of get yourself there. I think there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, right? You can buy a cruiser every year, or you could say, we're just going to put the same amount of money into a stabilization fund every year, and the chief will buy them as he needs them. He's got to go to town meeting and get 2/3 vote, but there's that way too. If the life cycle is working out in that way.
yeah, or even if you want to include the guns and the tasers as part, and call it a renewable line, I don't know what exact the phrase was, but just to be a little more consistent, just so, it's a little easier now than it was 6 years ago, but, to kind of just smooth that curve out a little bit and make it a little easier, just have a line item in there for cruisers or guns or tasers, whatever it is, it's 70,000 a year or whatever it needs.
You're safe no matter what you do, provided that you expense them and you don't do a lease or
Right.
or any kind of borrowing for short term.
And Ryan, that's exactly what we did. Well, it took a while to get to the 2, 2, and 2.
Yeah.
But we did exactly that before the override, where we used to have the cruiser money, and then we just kind of moved it to departments that needed it. Unfortunately, the budgets got too tight.
Right.
And then we had to remove that. And the off years, we had to remove that and use it towards operations. But that's what we were doing. We were using more as pay-as-you-go. It wasn't touching the cruiser line, and then we put it back when the cruises were scheduled again. But, we're coming out of that again a little bit, which is helpful.
It's a little easier for the public to understand, too, if you just say we're going to buy one a year, because that's what we need, as opposed to get them to understand the previous year I used it for a dump truck, and previous year I used it to fix the fire department, or whatever it was, It's just a little easier, simplified and understanding.
Matt, on April 11, we're going to review the warrant publicly. Can you foresee any warrant articles at this point that are going to be really either contentious or hard to explain?
Good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think, difficult to explain, because of the very thin air that some people breathe at the top of their mountain. But FEMA has come around with floodplain rewrites, and there are some requirements now. If you want flood insurance, you have to comply with the floodplain management requirements in the federal regs. And that will require us to change our zoning code and to have a floodplain overlay. And we will have to designate a floodplain manager,
Is that going to
typically
be
the building commissioner.
for this May or not?
Yeah, well,
Wow.
it must be done.
So the planning board will have some hearings for zoning then, right?
You would hope.
Okay. Let's go around for questions for Matt. Yeah.
He's got one. I stepped in,
Howard?
Good.
Okay.
I stepped in front of you on the cruisers.
Anything else, Ryan?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Carol, anything for Matt?
Yep.
Heather, how we doing?
We're doing fine. I'm good. Thank you.
No questions for Matt?
Keep sipping on that tonic water, she said.
It's Fever Tree, right?
All right, anything else, Matt, you can think of at this point?
There was something I was going to say, but I don't think I can, it wasn't important enough to emphasize.
Well, that's
So,
great that the budget is in the black with the comp reform in there.
Yes,
I think that's great.
yeah,
So,
it came in around 180,
good job.
Thank you, Matt.
so off we go.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Wojcik.
guys.
I make a motion to approve the minute meetings for Tuesday, December 13th.
Okay, you guys all read them over, right?
I unfortunately did not, I'm sorry. If you want to give me a minute, I'm happy to read them over now.
Scan them real quick? Yep. So we have 3 minutes to approve, and then we'll be all caught up, I think, more or less, so.
Could I, do you
Why
have,
don't you give Carol those minutes?
I've got a section I
oh, you
can
can
read.
watch it on
Yep.
the,
I can pick them up on the email.
okay.
So Gene, while people are scanning, March 21, who do we have? Has that changed at all, or is that,
I don't have that with me.
we're still on for Douglas Public School and BVT for the 14th, correct?
Yes, yes, and I'll go through the schedule with you
Yeah,
when we do the agenda.
okay.
Ryan, does Recreation still want to join us?
I do, I was hoping to grab Matt before I left. I haven't talked to him about that, but yes. On the
I
28th,
think we had stuff scheduled for March 21 and 28.
I do, I just don't, I don't
Okay.
have.
I just wondered if, since our last meeting, anything had changed with the schedule in terms of adding or subtracting, that's all.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
so rec can go either on the 21st or the 28th, either one is fine,
21st or 20th.
whatever's easy.
Were we going to meet on April 4 or not? Did we have to?
I think we were going to see how the schedule went.
Okay.
And it's also going to depend on the other special articles. We're working on the special town meeting now, but the articles aren't due until Friday for both, really.
Okay.
Yeah, I read this one already.
Does December 13 look okay to you, Carol?
All right, yeah, I read the other one too. When did you sing these?
Oh, about a week ago.
Oh, maybe I read them. Okay, I thought it was today.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, I think I did read these.
so we have a motion by Howard to approve December 13, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
Heather, thank you. Heather seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain, I'm still halfway through them, so I'll
Ryan
let you guys.
abstains. Okay. All right, motion carries then. You going to move January 10 too, Howard?
Did not, I was not here.
Oh, weren't you? Let's see.
I make a motion to approve the January 10th meeting minutes.
Okay, motion made by Heather, seconded by, can the chair second?
You can't?
I will second them then. So that's a live motion on the table for January 10. So we'll wait for you guys to peruse them real quick. Okay, all in favor of approving January 10, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Howard abstains, otherwise all ayes. And then January 24. I think think you were here for that one, Howard.
Motion to approve the January 24 meeting minutes.
Okay, motion made by Howard for January 24, 2023, seconded by
A second.
Ryan Hogan, seconds. Discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. All right, any questions on the upcoming dates, anybody?
No, next day, March 14, right?
It's Douglas Public and BBT.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Any reserve fund transfers, Gene?
There are none.
Any topics anybody has? Motion to adjourn by
Carol?
I'll make a motion.
Carol moves we adjourn at 8:30, seconded by
Howard?
Howard D'Amico. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? We adjourn at 8:30.
Look at that.